What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. First and foremost, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe and sanitized. Today, we are here for more extra history. We are on episode 3 of their Eleanor of Aquitane series.
Pause.
The title of this one is The Devil's Brood. If you haven't already watched my first 2 reactions to the first 2 episodes in this series, definitely go and check those ones out before you watch this one, mostly because this one won't make any sense, you know, if you don't watch those ones, because that's how numbers work. Also, if you guys have any recommendations for extra history series that you guys want me to watch, please leave them down in the comments below, because I will definitely be looking for another series from them to start after I finish this Eleanor of Aquitane one. So I don't have anything else for you guys. Again, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are succeeding at everything you want to do, whether it be little or big, small or large. I'm super excited to see what this video has in store for us. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
Spring 1173, Aquitaine. Henry's sons are in revolt, gone to Paris to ally with Eleanor's ex-husband Louis and his son Philip, and Eleanor is on the road. Her goal is unclear. She hasn't rebelled against her husband, but also hasn't condemned her 3 rebel sons or raised troops for Henry to use. Rumor has it she may be headed for Paris herself, and court gossip even swirls that she instigated this whole standoff as part of a dark plot.
Damn.
So Henry's soldiers capture her on the road and take her back to him.
Girl,
She will
you
now
weren't
be her
prepared for
husband's
that?
captive as well as his queen. Insurance that Aquitaine will not revolt, and a hostage to try to bring her sons to the negotiating table. Eleanor, the most powerful woman in Europe, will be a prisoner for the next 16 years.
Damn! Okay, so like I knew that she was held prisoner, but I didn't know it was for over a decade. Oh my God.
Eleanor of Aquitaine, powerful and savvy, has always attracted a lot of stories. And one of the big ones is that she was some sort of dark mastermind, secretly convincing her sons to rebel. However, that's not accurate.
Right.
Now, don't get us wrong. Eleanor wasn't above using her kids as chess pieces. That was actually kind of her whole thing, but by most accounts, she wasn't even around when young Henry finally snapped and decided to challenge his father.
Right.
If she had been pulling the strings, Henry probably would have divorced her and kept her in worse conditions. But as had been the case with her divorce from Louis, court figures found Eleanor a convenient scapegoat to blame the rebellion on. You know, rather than Henry deciding to make his son co-ruler, but then giving him no actual power. For a decade, Eleanor was removed from the political board, unable to see her children, and confined in luxurious solitude at English castles. While she was allowed to appear at Christmas courts, otherwise she watched from the sidelines as her family tore itself apart.
Jesus.
To put it simply, while Eleanor was imprisoned, her sons raised rebellions and fought their father, surrendered, went back to crush the rebellions they'd caused, then fought each other. Though that was kind of par for the course for Henry's
hold on.
family.
Wait. So they tried to fight their dad. They lost. That shit wasn't finna happen. So then they had to go back and be like, hey, yo, chill. We're not doing this no more. And then that shit clearly didn't work out either. And then they fought each other. This is all too complex. Like, how do y'all leave together but then not stay together, you know? Or come back together. You know what I mean? Y'all have no concept of family no more. Where's Vin Diesel when you need him?
In fact, Henry's bloodline, the Plantagenets, were so known for their anger issues and infighting that one of their nicknames was the Devil's Brood. According to legend, they were descended from a marriage between a French noble and the literal daughter of Satan.
Jesus.
But I digress. So what did Eleanor think about this familial civil war? Well, like so many things with her, the documents don't tell us directly, and we have to read between the lines. And for Rob's part, he thinks this is where Eleanor entered the final phase of her life. The first phase had been about protecting her own power as Lord of Aquitaine. The second was about founding the Angevin Empire with her marriage to Henry and securing its future through producing children. But now, her great work was to keep this red-haired devil's brood from tearing apart what
from
she and Henry
fucking
had built.
everything up.
A task that would encompass the rest of her life.
Right.
See, she was essentially living out her own political ambitions through her sons and building Angevin power through her daughter's marriages.
Okay.
This third and final phase began in 1183. When Eleanor had a dream where she saw her son Henry wearing 2 crowns, one atop the other. The crown of eternal life above that of his earthly power. Soon, she got the news that he had died of dysentery while campaigning against Richard.
Oh.
This dream haunted Eleanor, especially since one of Henry's deathbed acts was to beg the king to release her. Richard was now the heir presumptive, and that was a problem, because King Henry thought Richard would be too powerful if he was both heir to England and Duke of Aquitaine.
Okay.
So, as a condition of becoming heir, he ordered Richard to give up Aquitaine to his no longer landless brother, John. See, while most of the family considered John irresponsible and duplicitous, he had never joined his brothers in rebellion, and therefore had become Henry's favorite. Oh, yeah, Richard refused. As a compromise, Henry wheeled Eleanor out of captivity so Richard could formally hand Aquitaine back to her, letting Eleanor re-enter politics in a limited capacity. Oh, and John, as you can imagine, just loved being passed up again.
Right.
Eleanor was still a captive and kept within Henry's sight. However, her movement became less restricted. But that missing decade had also changed her family. Her children were now adults, and apart from helping negotiate the marriage of two of her daughters to the King of Sicily and the King of Castile, she really had no part in their lives.
Yeah, she
a thing
doesn't
that only
know them.
became more tragic, since 3 years after losing Henry, Geoffrey also died in a freak jousting accident, and in June 1189, her eldest daughter Matilda, Duchess of Saxony, also passed away.
Damn.
In her life, Eleanor had been so lucky as a mother. Only one of her 10 children, 8 with Henry, had died before adulthood. Plus, she herself had survived again and again the lethality of medieval pregnancy and childbirth. But now that lucky streak seemingly ended, and the next death changed everything. Days after Matilda's death, Richard, again in revolt, this time alongside Louis's son King Philip II of France, defeated Henry in battle. And having been sick for many years spent campaigning, Henry then confirmed Richard as his heir and withdrew to his capital at Chinon. And there, the man who had been Eleanor's husband, lover, and jailer finally died.
Damn!
Richard's first act as king was to send word across the channel that his mother was to be freed and treated as acting on his behalf in all things.
Well, at least he's a good son. He don't just leave her locked up. You know, at least she has that. But damn, she suffers so much while as a prisoner. So I feel like you don't even really get a full chance to mourn because, like, you're so preoccupied with, like, the fact that you're locked up, you know?
Eleanor emerged from her imprisonment more powerful than she'd ever been. While not officially regent, it was understood that she acted for Richard and that her word was his. As her first act, this Dowager Queen, formerly imprisoned by her husband, toured England to release Henry's other political prisoners, a personal gesture to win back loyalty for Richard and separate him from his father.
Very smart,
her next task
savvy.
was to make Henry's final arrangements. And in what has been read as a symbolic gesture, she had his body sent to an abbey in Aquitaine on her lands. There, in a building run by women, she put him in a tomb slightly lower than the one she later built for herself.
Not slightly
She
lower.
literally buried him. And when Richard returned to England in September of 1189, it was Eleanor who arranged his coronation. But as soon as he was crowned, he started preparing to leave. See, 2 years earlier, Richard heard that Saladin had taken Jerusalem and swore to join the Third Crusade. Now, Eleanor was dubious about this idea, having been on crusade herself and knowing how dangerous it could be. Richard should be securing his throne by fixing the damages the war had wrought, as well as marrying and producing heirs.
Like, you need to be focused here in England. Y'all, you don't need to be going out and conquering nothing. You know? Okay. But he ain't got no focus. Understandable. He didn't have a mother around to settle him down, you know?
But Richard didn't really care about England, apart from taxing it to fund wars. So instead, he liquidated the treasury, raised a special tax to fund his crusade, then just left. For years.
That's why they
Now,
hated
you can
him.
hear more about Richard's adventures in our Saladin series, but from Eleanor's perspective, he basically left her to sort out the mess, including his marriage. For 20 years, Richard had been betrothed to King Philip's half-sister Alice, the daughter of Eleanor's ex-husband Louis by his second wife. But Richard and Philip's alliance was rickety, and for years, Richard's father had made Alice his mistress, so she wasn't suitable, which made it basically a deal-breaker. Eleanor instead proposed Berengaria of Navarre, whose Spanish province protected Aquitaine's southern border, and where the culture was similar to Aquitaine. But Richard was already headed out to the Holy Land, meaning Berengaria had to be delivered to him en route for the marriage to take place.
What the fuck?
So, Eleanor had to cross the Pyrenees into Spain, pick Berengaria up, travel back across the mountains, overland through Europe, cross the Alps, and board a ship to meet Richard in Sicily.
That's so
Keep in
risky.
mind, she was almost 70.
Yeah.
That finally done. She returned to England and found the place in chaos. Richard's Council of
Jesus.
Regents had fell to infighting, and who was there to take advantage?
John.
The untrustworthy baby of the
Sneaky
family.
little bastard.
He'd taken London and set up a rival court there, claiming that he'd saved England from corrupt and incompetent regents, and that he was the natural successor, considering Richard was unmarried, had no children, and let's be honest, was probably dead by now. But when word of Richard's marriage filtered back via Eleanor and returning knights, John's brief appearance of legitimacy faded.
Fuck.
And
But the thing is like you can't be surprised or even upset with him from trying to take advantage. Because what's that phrase? When the cat's away, the mice will play. Like, of course, he's going to see a power vacuum and seek to fill it himself. This is what he's wanted the whole time. And it's just so funny to me when you see these situations, because it's like if you would have appeased them a little bit with a little bit of land, a little bit of power, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Anyway, if you would have done that, then like maybe you would have soothed their ambitions enough to keep them from doing stupid shit. But like when you ignore and push someone aside for long enough and then they get the opportunity, they're gonna take it.
incredibly, the family just sort of smoothed it over.
Not
I
the
mean, you know
steamroller.
John, right? I'm sure he won't cause any more trouble. Except he would, because in 1192, word reached England that Richard the Lionheart, hero of the Crusade, had secured the coastal Crusader states from Saladin and was headed back home, but then vanished. The King of
he
England just
did.
disappeared from the map. John, claiming his brother was dead and that he was the rightful king, took a ship for France and entered an alliance with King
Fuck.
Philip, leaving Eleanor to find and rescue one son while protecting his crown from
She's
the other.
damn near 80. She don't get to live her life? Oh my God.
Oh, yikes. That's some familial math I hope I never have to deal with.
Right. Like she's so old. She don't get to go rest and knit or like make soup or whatever old people did back then. Read the Bible. She don't get to do none of that. No, y'all keep putting this lady to work. But that was super fascinating. I think there's like 2 more episodes of this series. So I'm really excited to see how Eleanor's story progresses and how it ends up. And I'm assuming that this sort of leads into the War of the Roses type thing, but my timeline might be fucked up. I'm really bad with dates. I'm great with events and like how those events kind of lead to other events, but when it comes to dates, I get a little messed up. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching that with me, for coming on this journey with me. Don't forget, if you guys have any requests or recommendations, leave them down in the comments below. And other than that, peace out, Hope Biscuits. It's Skittin' Lit.